Listen real close, because this divorce just took a hard left turn. Everybody thought this was gonna be quiet. Civil, paperwork. Lawyers whispering behind closed doors. But Todd Tucker just walked into the courtroom and flipped the entire table. Because Todd didn't just respond to Kandi Burruss' divorce filing, he responded. And baby, it's messy. Here's what nobody was ready for. Todd Tucker is asking for primary custody of the kids. Not shared. Not weekends. Primary. And before y'all start screaming in the comments, pause, because this is where things get uncomfortable for a lot of people. Todd isn't saying Kandi is a bad mother. He isn't dragging her name. He isn't accusing her of neglect. What he's saying is something very simple. And very strategic. Kandi Burruss is booked and busy. Out of state. Touring. Filming. Working. Making money. And while she's gone, the kids are already with him. That's the part people don't want to talk about, according to what's being reported. The children are currently living with Todd in Georgia while Kandi handles out-of-state work obligations. So this idea that Todd just suddenly wants custody out of nowhere? That's not what this looks like. This looks like a man saying, I'm already doing it. So let's make it official. And let's be real for a second. Courts don't care about internet opinions. They care about routines. Stability. Who's actually present day to day. Judges don't like disruption. If the kids are already settled with one parent, that matters a lot. Now here's where the internet gets split down the middle, because the moment people hear father seeking primary custody, the narrative starts forming fast. People get defensive. People start yelling, control, money, Mama Joyce warned us. But Todd's filing actually goes out of its way to say something important. He acknowledges that Kandi is a loving, capable, and involved parent. He says he hopes they can resolve everything amicably. That doesn't sound like a man trying to scorch the earth. That sounds like a man covering his legal bases, but don't get it twisted. Just because he said it politely doesn't mean this isn't a power move, because if Todd gets primary physical custody, that changes everything. Schedules, support, leverage. The entire balance of this divorce shifts. And that's before we even get to the real nuclear bomb he dropped, the prenup. Yes. That prenup. Todd is officially questioning the enforceability of the prenuptial agreement. And this is where the tea gets scalding hot, because he's not just saying, I didn't like it. He's saying he felt pressured. Pressured to sign it right before the wedding. Pressured without proper legal representation at the time the document was presented, and if you watched that Bravo footage back in the day, you already know why this matters. The clock was ticking. The wedding was coming. Emotions were high. Cameras were rolling. And now, years later, Todd's legal team is basically saying, was this really fair? Here's the kicker. The filing reportedly claims the prenup was presented when Todd did not yet have his own attorney, even though Kandi's legal team had already been involved in discussions. And in legal language, that's not a small detail. That's the kind of thing judges actually stop and look at, because if a prenup is signed under pressure, without independent counsel, especially right before a wedding, that opens the door. Not guarantees, but opens the door, and I need y'all to hear this part clearly. Even with a prenup, even with separate assets, even with what's mine is mine energy, 11 years of marriage is 11 years of marriage. That's time. That's contribution. That's shared life. And courts don't just pretend that doesn't exist. Now I already hear the Mama Joyce choir warming up. She told y'all he was after the money. She warned her. And listen, Mama Joyce has never been shy about how she feels. But here's the uncomfortable truth nobody likes admitting. Mama Joyce has had opinions about every relationship Kandi has ever had. At some point, you either trust Kandi's judgment, or you don't, and Kandi is not a dummy. She didn't build an empire by being clueless. She knew who she married. The question isn't whether Todd loved her, the question is whether the legal setup was balanced, because love and paperwork are two different things, and right now, Todd is playing the paperwork game very well. This isn't about villains and heroes. This is about leverage, timing, strategy. And a divorce that just went from quiet to courtroom warfare, and we're just getting started. Now let's talk about what people are really scared to say out loud. This divorce isn't about whether Kandi Burruss will lose her kids. That's not happening. What's happening is a recalibration of power. Because when one parent is constantly traveling and the other parent is consistently present, courts don't moralize, they calculate. Todd is essentially saying, I'm here. I'm available. I'm already doing the work. And from a legal standpoint, that's not emotional. That's practical, and here's where things get tricky for Kandi. Being successful is not a crime. Being busy is not a crime. But family court doesn't reward hustle the way the internet does. It rewards availability. And Todd's filing leans hard into that reality. Now add the prenup situation on top of this, and suddenly Todd isn't just playing defense, he's applying pressure. Because if the prenup gets questioned, even partially, that opens conversations Kandi never wanted to have publicly. Financial contribution, lifestyle, shared labor, and yes, money. Let me be very clear. Nobody is saying Todd is entitled to half of everything. That's not how this works. But when people say he's not getting anything, that's not how this works either. Marriages are partnerships, not internships. And after 11 years, courts don't pretend one person was just a guest. What makes this even messier is the optics. Kandi is a brand. Todd is framed as the beneficiary. That narrative has followed them for years. And now, in a divorce, narratives become weapons. Todd's attorney knows that. Very well, this isn't random. This is calculated. Clean language. Respectful tone. Strategic requests. No emotional accusations. That's how you position yourself as reasonable in front of a judge, and that's why this filing matters so much, because this isn't Todd crashing out. This is Todd tightening his grip on the process. Meanwhile, the internet is doing what it always does, picking teams. Team Kandi. Team Todd. Team Mama Joyce. But the court? The court doesn't care about your team. The court cares about schedules, stability, and signatures. And speaking of signatures, that prenup signature might end up being the most expensive pen stroke of this entire marriage. Especially if footage exists. Because remember, a lot of this played out on television. And reality TV footage has been used in court before. If timelines don't line up, if pressure is visible, if counsel wasn't present, that becomes evidence, not entertainment. So when people ask, why is this getting ugly so fast? The answer is simple. Because both sides know what's at stake. Custody shapes everything. And once custody is on the table, the gloves come off. Even if everyone keeps smiling for the cameras, this isn't about hate. This is about leverage, and the reason this story isn't slowing down? Because we haven't even seen the full documents yet. Once those pages get dissected line by line, this entire narrative could shift again. So before you scream gold digger or cold-hearted businesswoman, remember this: marriages don't end in one moment. They end in 1,000 small calculations that finally get written down, and this one? It's far from over.